The protests continued in defiance of a ban on gatherings of more than 5 people. Troops opened fire with machine guns and automatic rifles to disperse the demonstrators. There were also reports of protesters attacking police stations and seizing police guns. The demonstrators threw firebombs, setting buildings alight. State radio said 78 people had been killed in the latest violence and more than 160 injured, but unofficial estimates put the figure much higher.
10,000 at least got killed, were led by the students. I was only 14 years old when I got involved in the student movement. Why? 14 years old? Yeah, in Burma, we are the kind of at the forefront of the social activism.
Since 1962, Burmese citizens have struggled under a military dictatorship with one of the world's worst human rights records. There is no freedom of expression, criticism of the government is illegal, the media is entirely controlled by the state, and communication with the outside world is forbidden. You can actually get a 25-year prison sentence just for using a fax machine or modem without permission. Under such a system, there are no legal means of political opposition. Activists risk their lives, as well as the lives of their friends and family, in order to conduct their political activities. From the beginning of military rule, however, Burmese students have led the resistance to the regime. Sadly, the military has responded with violent crackdowns. Resistance to the repressive government peaked in 1988 when Min Zin began his participation in the democracy movement. He was only 14 at the time, but he found himself leading fellow youth in a democracy protest.
In front of my very eyes, I saw 12 years old, 13 years old, because I was a high school student leader. So a lot of kids got killed.
Hundreds of thousands of people took part in street demonstrations led by students. By the time the movement was suppressed, thousands had been killed by their own government. Students were arrested by the hundreds, many fled the country, and universities were barricaded.
After that, I worked very closely with the Aung San Suu Kyi, the democracy leader. I traveled together with her, I gave speeches together with her. Even though at the time I did not know what democracy really is, but we expressed our feeling out of our experience.
Aung San Suu Kyi is the leader of the National Democratic League in Burma and a symbol of the struggle for freedom there. For the next 2 years after the uprising, Min Zin, Aung San Suu Kyi, and other democracy activists traveled the country to talk with citizens about democracy and human rights. Eventually, the government agreed to hold elections. It lost by a huge margin, taking only 10 of 485 seats. The National League for Democracy won by a landslide with 80% of the popular vote. However, instead of being inaugurated into office, NLD members were killed, tortured, and imprisoned.
And in July 1989, the military intelligence and troop came to my house and tried to arrest me. I was not at home, so they arrested my dad instead of me. So since then, I was on the run. I was hiding nearly 9 years inside Burma. I was moving from one place to another. I spent in the sympathizer houses and monasteries and meditation centers. You have to keep moving.
NLD leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been under house arrest since 1989. During that time, she won the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought and the Nobel Peace Prize. In accepting the Sakharov Award, she paid tribute to the student movement. The students were protesting not just against the death of their comrades, but against the denial of their right to life by a totalitarian regime which deprived the present of meaningfulness and held out no hope for the future. And because the students' protests articulated the frustrations of the people at large, the demonstrations quickly grew into a nationwide movement. Though activists continue to struggle for human rights within Burma, violent oppression from the military government has forced many to flee. Despite the dangers, students and Buddhist monks flooded the streets in September 2007 in the largest democracy movement since 1988. Though the protest was ultimately stamped out with a violent response from the military, the protest captured international attention and sparked demonstrations in countries across the globe. In a struggle as long and as uphill as the one in Burma, it would be easy to lose hope.
Whenever I feel sad, for example, when my parents passed away when I was in exile, and when my colleague died in the prison from torture, and I could not cope with this by referring to democracy, human rights, to keep me survive through all these difficulties. I always try to reconnect myself with the larger issue. That's the shared value, shared commitment I have had with my colleagues, my friends, my leaders, my people. And when we collected the rice bag during the 1988 uprising, the people, they have nothing to eat, but they make a rice bag for us so that we can eat. We can keep doing the uprising, like the protest and demonstration. And when we collected the rice bag, we always promised to them, we'll make sure you will get democracy one day. So whenever I feel like dejected or down, okay, I need to walk my talk. I need to fulfill my promise that I give to my people. I owe to them for the rice bag I ate. So this is a very simple thing, but that's made me feel really responsible. The rice bag I ate 20 years ago still, give me energy and then power to keep going.
The heroic efforts of Min Zin and other activists have thus far been unable to force the military regime in Burma to institute real democratic reforms. Their struggles require international support and assistance if they are to eventually topple the repressive leadership.
I don't expect that democracy overnight. At least Burma can take acceptable transition toward democracy. We will take some time along the way, but we definitely need to get out of this dark age and do some sort of transition. I would definitely encourage you. Please use your liberty to promote ours.